Real quick, why is wrestling strong important? This training methodology, this training manual we've constructed here. My background as a high school and college wrestler was a bit non-traditional, was unorthodox. The successes I saw wasn't because I had a long career, or because I had X amount of years wrestling before I got to each level. I didn't. So when I got to high school, I learned how to wrestle. You know, got to college, I took what I learned in high school and added a few more things. But it wasn't like I developed this great move list. Like I could shoot a high crotch from 42 different areas and different angular approaches, and my snaps, my ties are diff, that, and other, and all those bells and whistles that everyone kind of sells you. I never saw a need to have a move for 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 a move. And there are guys who had that ability to have that. But here's the difference. I saw and I interacted and I witnessed and I watched and I wrestled with a lot of guys who had a lot of wrestling ability, complete technicians, across the board. He is the smoothest, slickest, quickest wrestler, best practice room guy, and couldn't win when it counted, or it didn't win at the next level, and all this kind of stuff. My After years later, my deduction from that, which kind of led to the construction of this manual, wasn't that this kid or this guy wasn't a good wrestler. I would never insult him by saying that, because some of these guys, we can't, before I got to college, you had 10, 12 years of wrestling experience before we even stepped foot into your first varsity match. In high school, some of these guys had, 6, 7, 8 years of wrestling. And when it came down to their last senior campaign, never won a conference, or never went to state or ever placed a state. And then in college, never went to NCAA tournament, never won a match, never won 2 matches, never placed. And you would say, is this guy supposed to turn around and look and say he was a bad wrestler? No. What I will say, in hindsight, his training was incomplete with wrestling, because it is so unique. It differs from every other sport, and it does not evolve as rapidly as every other sport does. And in football, just as my experiences were, when guys went on off season, they weren't focusing on, let me drill this route, or me from my own line, let me work on that. I should work on those skills, but that wasn't my bread and butter. If I didn't have the physical attributes to be able to execute what I want to do, whether it be a pass set or a run block, then it was almost pointless. And with wrestling, because it's a sport with weight classes, strength training becomes the last area of focus in an off season, in the season. Well, I want to get down in this way, I want to wrestle this way. And that gets into a whole discussion with nutrition and all that kind of stuff. But there were guys with some of the best, setups for doubles and high crotches and throws and this, that, and another, that when it came down to get to the top level, top 10, top 12 guys in the country that could not beat those guys, or couldn't beat the top 8 or top 5, I can't say that comes down to wrestling. But what I can come down to is physical attributes, or lack thereof. Wrestling strong is a combination of absolute strength and relative strength. Everyone knows those guys that can pick up counters over their heads, but couldn't bench press 135. How can this dude just like lift this car up and he can't even shoulder press the bar? High level relative strength, low level absolute strength. Wrestling strong combines of both. I can master body weight. Also, I can take external forces and then do what I want to, whether it be press, row, pull, this, that, and other. I take the two strength components, I combine them, and I make myself almost bulletproof. Wrestling is probably the most unique sport in what the necessities are for the sport. It combines everything you need in life and from a training program, and it combines that, and you have to be ready to unleash that to an opponent, in a blink of an eye. As a wrestling community, I think there becomes so much of a focus of technique, conditioning. When I mean conditioning, your aerobic system, how, all those kind of things that come in. You got guys who run forever, who can do this, do this burpees forever and push-ups, but we're neglecting periodization of strength training, which is a third energy system that is completely being omitted here, and that is an error that every other sport does not do. You have max effort days for football. You have this for track for all these sports do this. Wrestling is kind of like, well, this is what we did in the '80s, so it worked for these guys, so it must work for us because this is all we know. Because wrestling has its own demands, so this is what we think are demands. When you have strength and conditioning specialists telling you the demands of the sport, and you combine that with actual participants of the sports, you get a training program that is as close to the truth of what you need as possible. In my opinion, of looking at the sport now, since 2000, we are seeing the highest level of underclass state champ and national champs. In my opinion, you could debate that if you want to, but in my opinion, you're seeing more guys walk in ready to win a national title and walk in ready to start than ever before. Do you think that they're any better of a wrestler now than when, let's just say 15, 20, 25 years ago, notable wrestling figures come out? You think some of these guys are really that better of a technician or a tactician than those guys? Or these kids are being exposed to a strength and conditioning program at an earlier age than what myself and my predecessors were? I would make a very strong case for that being the reason why these kids come in ready to start, ready to win, without a red shirt or with a red shirt. If you're in high school, I'm walking in, I'm from an 8th grader, I'm ready to go, I can do this, because now strength and conditioning is coming at forefront. A lot of it isn't necessarily strength and conditioning for wrestling. Strength and conditioning for other sports is what's allowing these kids to come in ready. If you played football, if you played soccer, you ran track, you do baseball, basketball, the sport demands require a strength and conditioning coach. Therefore, these kids are learning how to use their body, developing kinesthetic awareness far earlier than what my generation or generation were, and they are ready to tackle upperclassmen, whether it be a high school, 17, 18-year-old versus a 14-year-old, 15-year-old. Well, how would that work? Well, this kid's ready. He's physically maturing way faster than this kid who's 18 or coming in college. This kid's 18, 19 years old, and he's beating guys who's 22, 23. That's not supposed to happen. That's unheard of. The kids are ready because the sport, all the other sports are rapidly evolving. Wrestling is refusing to evolve. You got your standout individuals who may or may not understand what their supplemental training is allowing them to do at such an early age. But from this side of the desk, from the strength and conditioning side of the world, I recognize it readily, and I'm trying to hold a banner or a flag saying that this is what needs to happen for kids to become better wrestlers, better athletes sooner in their career. Now, I wasn't a tactician or technician, but my stance, this man is for the kids who's not going to be a blue chipper. What happens if you get the guys who's not, coming out and they wrestled 6 years, 7 years prior to, high school, or 10 years prior to college? What do you do? You tell me those guys just got to learn to be better wrestlers? I look for this man to even the playing field, level the playing field. What I can't do as a wrestler, I can make up in my physical attributes. So you don't have the wrestling years, but you have the strength training years, and that levels the playing field. And I think that that's omitted, almost like the thumb in the nose at that notion that can't be, but truly true. You don't believe me? Look at some high-level matches in high school or college. Look at these matches. It comes down to sometimes a guy who's a more skilled wrestler, who's a better athlete, or who has the greater physical attributes at the time. I think there's a difference between all three. I think wrestling is wrestling, athleticism is athleticism, and physical attributes being a high level strength, high level speed, this, that, and another could be the reason why you win. Now, you could have physical attributes and still not be athletic. You met guys who are just really, really, really strong. That's a physical attribute, but he's not really athletic. that could be enough to win. You've seen guys win national titles, win state titles, and not be the best wrestler. You want to scratch your head like, how did he place it? How did he become an All-American? How did he get in the podium? How did he place? How did he do this? Great physical attributes, maybe athleticism, wasn't a wrestler. I took, in my opinion, I took a few choice moves, a few choice techniques, and I think, in my opinion, I had a moderate level of athleticism. I had some pretty good physical attributes, and I panned out pretty well. And that was a kid who didn't wrestle till they got to high school. And I'm on the notion that if I could do that, anyone could do that. And I'm not going to discount kids who may be at public schools who didn't just start into wrestling, as a kid and don't have that pedigree and aren't a blue chip recruit. But how do you make that kid better? We control what we can control. I'm not going to tell you to drill this over and over again if that's not where you're going to win. Where you win is having one or two solid moves, and then from there, be able to amplify that with your physical attributes and athleticism. You have a double leg they just can't stop. Why can't I stop that double leg? Because I'm stronger, I'm faster, I'm more powerful, or I'm more powerful and not stronger. But speed is basically strength plus speed is power. So you look at those type things. It's like, oh, I get it now. I don't need a million different moves, but what I have is I'm solid. That makes for an interesting matchup on any level from a spectator's standpoint, and that makes for kids not having the daunting fear of having to look at a guy who's got, two titles in front of him, and he's coming in and you're wrestling him in the quarterfinals of some tournament, and you're like, well, I can't beat him. You can beat anybody, but you got to believe you might not have the wrestling experience and skill, but you have the physical attributes. You can level that playing field. Also, we're going to be doing weekly videos. I'm going to highlight the program. I'm going to talk about why we're doing this exercise, how it relates to wrestling, what are the moves closely associated with this exercise. If you buy the manual, you're on our mailing list. I'll put that up on YouTube. It'll be a YouTube video, and you get to be a how-to series. So now it's like, I'm not full of shit. I'm telling you how you could translate this to your guys or yourself, or most importantly, if you just want to be an all-around badass, get the manual, train. If you go to Planet Fitness and you're like, all right, my workout regime isn't very good. I don't want to go to classes. I don't want to do CrossFit. I don't want to do this. But you know what? I just want to train like a wrestler would. Get the manual, train. So we'll put you on the list. You can watch the videos. You could take your physique, take your attributes to the next level. All right. Last thing before I leave, shout out to the Cleveland State wrestling team there. They chose to fund the program. It's awesome news. It's pretty cool for the Cleveland State students to vote on that. That was pretty awesome. So stay tuned. Buy the manual. Recommend it. Share. Get everyone on board. I think this sport is the best sport in the world. I think that it has to evolve like every other sport is evolving. Keep it exciting. Keep it competitive. Keep the outside interest into the sport. All right. Take care. Thanks for the support, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.